we're taking the dogs out for a little stroll. First things first, check out a friend of mine on YouTube. His name is Rich Herman. He's a legit photographer, you guys. This is first rate. He gets out there into the wilderness and does some amazing work. So anyways, Rich Herman, go check him out on YouTube. YouTube's like the great equalizer, because there should be people flooding to his channel, but no one knows because YouTube's not going to tell them. So let's do Rich a solid and go visit him. He's been a friend of this channel for a long time. He's part of what gives this channel some legitimacy, in my opinion. So it's nice to have some top-notch photographers that subscribe to your channel. That's pretty cool. For the gear that I used in there, I went with the Lumix S9 JPEGs, pretty much straight out of the camera with the 20 to 60. They came out nice. We also used the Insta360 X4 for getting a feel of the whole space. We have some sections that went a little crazy, maybe. You know, 360 cameras are kind of like driving a car on a windy road. You know, you don't really know how everyone else is reacting, but because you're behind the wheel, you got a good feel for what it is. But that doesn't mean your passengers don't get sick. So hopefully I didn't go too far with it. But that's the two pieces of gear I used for the outside and the inside. How I got into this library, because you know, it's a public space, and for all the photographers out there, I encourage you to, you know, get your camera active in these public spaces. You know, we run out of places to do photography or feel confined because of whatever restrictions. You know, these public spaces are a perfect thing. Now, I'm walking around with a 10-foot pole and a camera, so I'm gonna cause a disturbance if there's people in there. So I emailed Chris, who's the head librarian. Man, he let me in early. He let me capture some footage that, you know, I think is pretty significant. Worked out pretty good. Richland, Washington has a strange history, because this was farmland. 1890s to 1950s, we had some little farms around here that people made a living at, mostly apples and fruit. You get lots of sunshine here, and there was irrigation. So there's this little community set up, and then World War II comes along, the Manhattan Project kicks up. All of a sudden, Richland is occupied. All the little farms ripped out. They left some of the main buildings. One of the mainstays as an original is this building. This is the Dyer building. It was here when Hanford got here. They didn't take it down. It was, in fact, the first public library in Richland, Washington. That's what they used. It was like a community center, a meeting center, and a library. You know, 50, 40,000, 30,000, whatever it was. There's a lot of people, a lot of houses, a lot of activity, fully government built. Okay, so 1960, Richland incorporated as its own town. It's no longer a government entity. It's like anywhere else. It just has a lot of these buildings around. These are Quonset huts. Now, the government built these in Richland because it's such an easy way to put up a building. They're good against the wind. They don't require a huge crew of skilled carpenters. Instead, you can have one or two skilled carpenters and a lot of workers that can get these up. Whereas, you know, more complex framing, it requires more carpenters. So these Quonset huts were an easy way to get out of the sun, get out of the weather, and they also were quick and easy to build, strong, and there's still a lot of them around. A dozen of them or so that are still here. And one of those was Richland Public Library. It was a Quonset hut that sat right here. I'm not sure if it was on this block or that block, but that was the original site. The building's no longer there. Now, in 1970, they put up a proper library. It was brick, you know, 70s style library it was quite dark, had a lot of brick, had some big windows, but they were tinted dark. They built a great building. They had a nice space. Now, by the time 2000 rolled around, they outgrew that library, and not only that, but it was a bit dated and they needed something a little more modern. So they kept the original library building and they basically put a big shell over it. It's a big glass shell. It's wonderful with light. They've got those big trees that protect it from the afternoon sun, the hot sun, and then the evening sun they don't have to worry about because they got their backs to it. So it's pretty remarkable, the placement, the engineering, and how to utilize this space. I applaud the builders and the designers that took this older space, which is wonderful in itself, and built on it, around it. It's really a terrific achievement that they did, and as far as I know, that library is still good to go, 20 years later, whereas before they kind of outgrew it. So Chris and his staff at the library do a really great job. He spent time with me, gave me a whole tour, and we had a blast. It was really great conversing with him. Richland is lucky to have Chris as their head librarian. I'm just going to say it. Really neat guy. Had a really neat experience, and I encourage you photographers to get out there and do some of this. It's not difficult, and if you're covert enough, or when it's quiet, these public spaces are paid for by our tax dollars. So, and they're wonderfully built. And if you're into architecture or into, that type of photography, boy, if you have a city hall or you have some other buildings, I invite you to use caution. And particularly if you're using a 10-foot pole with a 360 camera, you might want to get permission or talk to somebody. But it's a public space, and you're allowed. It's just how you want to do it, and I encourage you to reach out. My response was really good. It took some back and forth, but once we got it, it was really great. Richland's got a nice library. It was a really nice time. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, your staff, for keeping things clean and nice. Isn't that wall cool? They kept the wall. They managed to build around this thing, and this brick embossment, I don't know what you'd call it, but it's slick because somebody got in there and they carved that brick and made a really interesting pattern out of an interesting brick pattern. It was hard to capture the depth of it and the light, but I think we did okay. But anyways, I didn't do it justice. Regardless, it's really a nice piece of art. The art out front, the two youngsters reading back to back, is just a wonderful symbol of our public library. So anyways, hey, thank you for coming. Hope that you learned something, and hope you enjoyed the photos and the video. We'll be back soon with another video. I thank you for coming, and I hope your day is great. And get out there and do some photography. See you later.